you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you do understand will confuse you. In all of these 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, day by day, all of the time, all of the time, all of the time.
Well, good morning and welcome to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am the co-host. My name is Mr. Bobby. And again, welcome to the program. Now, if you'd like to get in contact with the show, just simply dial this number come on, Mr. Bobby, 516-453-9921, and make sure you press the number 1 button so that you can get in line for the phone calls that Mr. Fuller can answer for you, and that'll be great. You can also Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com. And when you do that, please, again, don't write me a long letter. Just make it short and brief. Some of you, unfortunately, you have taken advantage of that, and you send me these long letters, and I simply cannot do that. So make it short and brief so that I can ask Mr. Fuller, and then Mr. Fuller can answer your question in an appropriate way. Remember that Mr. Fuller uses logic, which means, even on the callers, that means that he uses cause and effect is what logic does. And so make sure that when you ask your question that you keep that in mind, because we are looking for constructive results, CR, yeah. That's what we're looking for. You can also join the chat room. All you have to do is go to blogtalkradio.com, and you want to go to, I think it's shows, and you want to get the Produce Justice program or the Produce Justice show. Click on that bad boy, and then there's a place where you can click on and get into the chat room. Yay. And you can do your thing in there. As Miss Rita 888 is in there this morning. Good morning. And my brother from England, JJ Killer from England. Yeah, he's in there. This program goes all over the world. And speaking about that, hey, listen, for those of you who purchased Mr. Fuller's book, thank you for doing that. And for those of you who purchased it through Amazon.com, hey, leave me a comment. Leave a comment about that, please. That just does a lot of good. So if you remember, if you purchase it through Amazon, do that, and we can take that information from there because that information is important. Please do that. All righty. And by the way, when you go to the chat room, constructive actions items, we'll give you the lowdown of last week's show and some interesting conversations going there. So thank you for all my peoples that do that. Okay, let me start off by saying good morning to you, Mr. Fuller. How are you?
Good morning. I'm still learning.
You are still learning. Very, very, very good. Okay, let's do this today. Okay, Ray, get ready. Dallas action. By the way, send me a Whataburger up here, too, by the way. No In and Out. Ray, don't laugh. Coming up. Okay, Ray, you're in. Go ahead.
Good morning.
Yes, sir.
Good morning. I have 2 questions. Mr. Fuller, do the white supremacists dominate and control all symbols in the known universe?
All criminals?
Symbols.
Yes, as far as what they mean to people.
Okay. Do the letters that make up every word that encompass every language, are they symbols?
The letters that encompass every word, are they symbols?
Yes, the letters that make up every word. Yes.
Well, I'll just go according to the logic. People make languages, so if the white supremacists control the people who make languages, then they control the languages that the people make and what they will mean in a functional way. That's the logic. That's the conclusion you come to tentatively until proven different. But I don't see where there's any proof. Otherwise, there are thousands of languages, I understand, on the planet, tribal languages, sometimes just 300 or 400 people. And they have a language that's very distinct from a language of a tribe that's maybe 600 miles away. And it's just 300 people. But if they encounter each other, the people, those 300 people encounter anybody outside of their tribe, quote, unquote, outside, they try to communicate with each other, but they have difficulty doing it because they don't speak the same language, even though it's just 300 people, and they have held on to their traditional language as their numbers dwindle over a period of time. But in answer to the question, if the white supremacists control the people, and all people of color are controlled by the white supremacists, because that's what white supremacy means, then the white supremacists control the language that the people speak. All they have to do is just control the people. You know, language doesn't matter anyway if they got control of the people, because their language is going to come under the authority, just like they come under the authority and the power of the white supremacists, if they are people of color.
Okay. All right. Ray from Dallas. Thank you. Don't be a stranger, and I still want a Whataburger. All righty. Let's see here. You know what, my producer, I just accidentally deleted Corey, so I need to get Corey from Milwaukee back because he was next in line there, and I messed up on that. Sorry about that, Corey. We'll get you back, and you'll go to the front of the line. In the meantime and in between time, Mr. Fuller, I have a Gmail from Quincy X. Says this, Mr. Fuller, I have heard you say that reparations should be in the form of things like education, health care, teeth fixed, and whatnot. But definitely not, and these are in capital letters, cash, period. Now, if someone wanted your book but told you that they will give you free education for the price of your book, you would decline. Rightfully so. Capital letters here. For you to say education is reparations is off code as hell, sir. Period. You should stay on code, Mr. Fuller. We need, capital letters, cash, and the ones that want education can pay for it. Thanks. Please, sir, stay on code. Thanks. Mr. Fuller?
Sure. That's what is meant by the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept. I was giving my suggestion, like I do throughout the books. But any other suggestions that anybody else has to make, if it works for them to do the things that need to be done, then by all means, that's what the compensatory logic is. That's why I say we need a code. That's right in line with the code. All they have to do is just simply say, well, Fuller, I mean, that's the limitation you want to put on it. I mean, you don't want the cash. So, Fuller, when you come to the table, you don't ask for cash. That's you. I'm going to ask for cash. Because I have to deal with the white supremacists. I'm not dealing with you no way. You ain't got nothing to give me. That's all the person has to say, because that's the logic of the code, and I don't. See, reparations is going to come from the white supremacists, so you can ask for anything you want to ask for, or demand it, or whatever technique you intend to make. I was just making a suggestion that it's got to be much greater than cash. But, you know, and I have a bunch of suggestions about that, and it should be generational. This repair job is huge. In fact, I made a list of all the different things that have come up that's supposed to be something like repair jobs just the other day. I kind of misplaced it. But I just tried to see how many different things have come up that I'm somewhat familiar with down through the years. They had something called the Tennessee Valley Authority.
Yeah, TVA.
Yes, TVA, during the Roosevelt era, because people kept getting floods every year. The houses washed away. They would lose family members and whatnot. And every year this would happen in this same area. And the houses and everything just floating down the river, and just repeatedly. And nobody knew what to do about it. But then some engineers got together and said, we'll dam the water. We'll put up a dam, or a series of dams if we have to. And this was kind of brought out in a movie that's on my movie list called Wild River with Montgomery Clift. And you'll learn a little bit about that era and how the black people figured into it and all like that. But that was the Tennessee Valley Authority in the 1930s. And then you have, since then, you've had everything like the Marshall Plan, the Berlin Airlift. You've had all kinds of programs that have come up specifically to cure a specific problem. So we want reparations. So reparations means repair. So in answer to the question, anything that you want to ask for that you think that will satisfy your needs, because everything in the code is addressed to the individual person, not to black people lumped together.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the United Independent way.
Okay.
Yeah, your individual needs have to be tailored. So the caller is absolutely correct, but there's no conflict. If the caller is thinking there's a conflict with Neely Fuller, there is none.
Okay.
All you have to do is step up to the table and say, I don't know what Fuller asked for with his crazy self, but I'm asking for cash. All right? And so it's between you and the white supremacists, whomever you are. I mean, you ask for what you want.
Mm-hmm.
That's the compensatory way.
All right, Corey X, you got it. You heard it right there. I just emailed you so that you can, so you have the response both ways. Okay, before we move on. Thank you, Corey. Not Corey, but thank you, Quincy X. JJ, a killer from England, said that he bought 3 copies of the revised edition and 1 word guide from Amazon, then bought 10 copies of the original edition 24 years ago from Mr. Fuller. Thank you. You don't know how much that really helps. That really helps out for that information. Okay, Corey. Let me see. Milwaukee. Corey, you are in. There you go.
Greetings, Mr. Bobby, Mr. Fuller. How are you doing?
Yes, sir.
I had a quick question, Mr. Fuller. I'm going according to the word guide, page 98. It's the definition of the word duty, D-U-T-Y. And my question is, should every person doing their so-called labor, their job, just the work of an individual person on the planet, should every move that we make, we be conscious of our duty, the ultimate duty of every person in the known universe to produce justice? Is this our focus, and this is what we should do? no matter what our job is. Thank you.
Ms. Fuller?
Yes, in my opinion, in the opinion of, I guess, anybody who's talking about solving problems, if you're not solving problems between people if you don't have what you call justice. And what is justice? Guaranteeing that no person is mistreated. Everybody on the planet should want that. No person on the planet should want anybody to be mistreated, particularly the person who doesn't want to be mistreated. The person who doesn't want to be mistreated doesn't want to be mistreated. So I think most people will be on board with that. You know, a person, that's a natural instinct, not to be mistreated. Something's kind of incorrect about your thinking. Most people will agree. If you like being mistreated, you deliberately want someone to mistreat you, that's a sort of a mental illness. So that's like a no-brainer. And also you want to get the help that you need. That's what people stand in line for hours and whatnot. And you ask them, why are you standing in this line? And they say, well, I'm trying to get across this border. Well, why are you trying to get across this border? Because I think I can get the help that I need. I can't get it where I came from. That's why I am leaving where I came from and going where I can get the help that I think that I can get, because I can't get it where I came from. That's why I am what you call leaving. So that's it. And so that's that other part of what you call justice. Everybody on the planet does not want to be mistreated, most people, unless they have serious mental illness. And everybody on the planet wants to get the help that they need in order to function as a person who is heading toward trying to be, hopefully, a human being. Mm-hmm. Now, a person who is trying to deny people that thing called justice should be stopped.
Yes.
And the white supremacists do not believe in justice. They don't believe in giving help where it's needed, and they definitely believe in mistreating people if those people have color in their skin. I mean, that's absolute. That's what white supremacy means. You mistreat people who have color in their skin. Otherwise, you're not a white supremacist. You're not on board with the program.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All righty. Thank you very much there, Corey. And sorry about cutting you off. I didn't mean to, but we did. Hey, listen. Again, this is a repeat announcement for those of you who have bought the Mr. Fuller's book through Amazon, in particular. We're asking that you please leave a comment about that. What it does, it helps us to see where we're at and where we're going to go, and a couple of other things that are mentioning that are worth of value to the program. And JJ from England said that he bought his books from Amazon. I think at least 10 of them, I believe he was. No, he bought 10 of the original books, but he bought all 3 revised editions, from Amazon. So thank you for that. Then he said he bought the books as gifts, and the reason why I'm pointing that out is that Rita 888 from the DMV also has a contribution to the not so much to the program, but to being Constructive Results. Has bought them also as gifts. And you can do that. Buy them as gifts that you can hand out to people, and hopefully they will read them. So that's very good. And he also said 1 copy for me, so I like that. Okay. Man, my computer screen. I had a question for you, Mr. Fuller, since you had spoken about movie list. You reminded me of my brother down in where are you from? Alabama, man? Brother Theodore. He said this, Mr. Fuller. He said, this is from the This is from the Gmail. He said, a quick question. He said, could the 1960 movie, Mr. Fuller, Inherit the Wind, with George C. Scott and Jack Lemmon, be one of the movies on your movie list? Back then, it was creationism versus evolution, and one man's trial for being a teacher of young minds. The more things change, the more they stay the same. That was when we said that last year. And not it was a George C. Scott and Jack Lemmon version, not the Henry Fonda version, was another that starred Spencer Tracy, Gene Kelly, and Frederick March. A good movie all the same. Do you remember that movie, Mr. Fuller, and is that on your list, Inherit the Wind?
I remember the movies, but I never saw them.
Okay.
So I cannot make a comment on them. But under compensatory logic, if one of the callers has seen the movies and think that the movies have lessons that will help people to think constructively and produce constructive results, when you walk out of the movie, I mean, you would have added something to your mental capacity that will help you to solve problems and produce constructive results, then add it to your list. That's the compensatory way.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, any movie that any of the Neely Fuller has about maybe 39 or 40, I don't remember the exact number, on my website, movies that I have seen myself. But there are many movies I haven't seen, and some that I have seen that I didn't think have a lot of value to them as far as producing constructive results. But if somebody else sees the value and sees how they can employ some of the lessons that will produce constructive results, that's the compensatory way. That's the United Independent Compensatory Codified Way. See, that's what the wonders of code mode is all about. Like one of the callers this morning said that, he disagreed with something that I said. Well, that's a part of the code. You can disagree with what Neely Fuller says and do whatever you think works. That's the compensatory way, making up for what's missing. Say, Fuller's missing the mark, okay? So I'm going to fill in those blanks that he left. What he's talking about, he's not going to ask for money as reparations. I'm going to ask for money, tons of it, or whatever. And the person, I'm not prohibiting the person from doing that. I'm not even in it. That's negotiations with the white supremacists. I'm just talking about when I come to the table and I have suggestions for other people. They don't have to take them. Nobody has to answer to Neely Fuller. That's the magic of codification.
Mm-hmm. All righty. Speaking of that, let's go to Houston, Texas. Boy, Texas is in the house this morning. All right, Big John, getting ready to come to you. John, Houston, you're on.
Grand risings, gentlemen, and thank you for the time, Mr. Bobby.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Fuller, I appreciate what you said about the Tennessee Valley Authority. I'd also suggest anyone researching it will understand that's the history of cable TV. It's from wrapping a wire from an antenna at the top of the mountain and rolling it into the valley, Tennessee Valley Authority. As far as the question this morning, and it was very interesting listening to his response, Mr. Bobby, about symbols and language. Lies, white Jesus, and the power of Christianity. How can we get to the core of that if we don't address it? I know he says religion is one of those 9 areas of human activity. If we do not address, especially what just happened with Resurrection Sunday, or so someone calls Easter, lies, white Jesus, and Christianity are the core power of symbolism causing confusion for so-called black people in America and people of color worldwide. How will we deal with that if we don't bring that front and center? And I'd like to listen to his response, Mr. Bobby. Thank you again for the time this morning.
Okay. All righty. Gotcha. Yeah. Mr. Fuller?
that question is being asked of me.
John?
Lies, white Jesus, the power of Christianity is the fundamental symbols, language, and the power of confusion being caused particularly to so-called black people in America, but people around the world through the Roman Catholic Church and other supposed divisions of Christianity. How can we deal with that if we don't get to the power of that symbolism, language, mind control? And I yield.
Okay.
True. Just tell the truth if you know it. And if you don't know it, say you don't know it, whatever it is. And talk to people about whether you want one thing, that is white supremacy, or not. That's all. Replace white supremacy with justice. It doesn't make any difference what you're talking about or how you're talking about it. And what is justice? Just guarantee that nobody's mistreated. Doesn't make any difference what you talk about or how you talk about it. Codification is about just doing one thing to start with, and number two, ultimately, have a world in which you have a universal man in correct interaction with universal woman in all areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. And anything that's supportive of white supremacy, you simply question it. All problems are solved, according to the code, through the process of questions and answers. And so if a person says Jesus is white, for example, and another person says Jesus was not white, then find out the truth, if they can. And then the bottom line question is, though, what does any of that got to do with replacing the system of white supremacy with the system of justice, one way or another? And if you ask enough questions of everybody, it's going to fall right in place anyway. Mm-hmm. That's why I say we need a code. All you have to do is just keep asking questions. That's the procedure for everything that's a problem. Keep asking questions and getting answers, and everybody will eventually wind up right where they should be. Everybody won't wind up where they wanted to be when they started out, but you're going to automatically wind up where you should be, and that's everybody. That's the nature of questions and answers.
Okay. All right, John. There you go. And thank you for listening. All right. Break time here, so let's do this. You are listening to the April the 26th, 2022 edition of the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. Thank you for listening to the program. If you have any questions and if you would like to be a participant on today's program, simply call this number or dial this number, which is 516-453-9921. And when you do that, please give your name to the call screener so that I can hopefully, prayerfully, and whateverly give you the proper introduction so that we can, Mr. Fuller can speak with you. You can do that, please, and make your questions short and complete as the callers have been doing this morning. I want to thank you for doing that, making it short so that Mr. Fuller can fully answer your question, because as you know, he uses logic, which is cause and effect, to answer your question, which also means at his discretion uses examples to make sure that you understand, or we get some understanding on that, because the one thing that we are desperately trying to avoid is confusion, because we're looking for constructive results. I almost said critical race thinking, but constructive results or critical results. Tell the truth. That just solves it all. All righty. You can also Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY @gmail.com. You can do that. And you can also join the chat room and get in on all the good conversations and learning experience. As Brother Lumumba says, he's still learning. We're all still learning, but he says that. All you have to do is go to blogtalkradio.com, and there's a place where you want to go to shows or programs, I believe it is, and then you click on that, and then the chat room icon becomes available for you to click on it, and when you do, you can get in and join the conversation with Rita, Justice Warriors there, Emery Lumumba, Constructive Action Items is there, woo, and giving you all kinds of information. Yeah, all kinds of things that we need in reviews on the programs and so forth. Okay, so I'm hearing noise in the background. I don't know what that is. It's certainly on in this end, but we'll go from there. But that's how you make contact with the show and all the other good stuff to keep it going, because you also help make this bad boy happen. Okay, let's see. Let's move on here. Okay, this comes from Brother Treadway. Okay. He says, there's a series of questions here, and I will select a few. This is one question, Mr. Fuller. He says, Mr. Fuller, why do you allow people to ask the same questions over and over versus referring them back to previous episodes?
I have to answer the questions the way that people ask them. Sometimes people forget that they asked the question, or sometimes people really don't listen. I found from experience people are not listening for the answers.
Mm-hmm.
Or I don't know, they forget the answers, and I think that could happen. Or they forget that they asked the question and received the answer, or they didn't understand the answer and asked the question again. So I don't have an answer for why people do that, other than I've speculated on it myself. I say I just answered that question, maybe about 12 times, and it's on such page such and such in the textbook, you know, or maybe it's 6 or 7 or 8 pages in different parts of the textbook, and the caller may have read from those pages him or herself and got the answer right out of the textbook, but still will call in and ask me. Now, why people do that? I have to give the classic answer that is the answer for a lot of questions when people ask me, according to the code, those 3 words. I don't know. I don't know why people do that. Ask the same question over and over and over and over and over again. I don't know why people do that, but the caller is correct. Lots of people do that.
Okay.
And I'll answer the question. I'll take up a lot of time. Mr. Bobby will have to kind of rush me along sometime. I mean, so that you can move on to the next person. But I try to be thorough in answering a question, and sometimes take up a lot of extra time. Mm-hmm. And then, down through the years, I found that what seems like the same person will call and ask the same question again and again and again. Mm-hmm. I don't know why that is.
All right. Okay, continuing on with just a couple more from him. And now this question, all right, I'll just ask the question. Does Neely Fuller drink liquor? Mr. Fuller?
Like liquor, like whiskey?
He just says, does Neely Fuller drink liquor? Now, I already know the answer to the question according to the many shows that we have done.
I'll give the answer. No.
Oh, okay.
Never have. Don't know what it tastes like. Never have. Never had a taste. And been in every kind of whiskey joint you can name. I was in the military where people drank. People who never drank before started drinking and smoking. I never tasted any kind of alcoholic drinks. Not a taste. I have no idea what it tastes like. And while I'm talking about that, I'll say this too. Beer. Never had a taste of beer. I have no idea what beer tastes like. I've watched people drinking beer, just lean back, you know, and take a good long sip or whatever you want to call it, of beer from a bottle, you know, and then look at you and say, boy, this is a hot day and that beer sure tastes good. And I would say, boy, it must really taste good because he's enjoying it, or she, but I've never tasted it. I just never, I never liked what I saw people doing when they drank whiskey, because I came up around a lot of people who were what you call falling down drunks, literally falling down on a regular basis on Saturday night, staggering up and down the street, just falling in the gutter and all that. And as a very young person, I saw a fella who was a real nice fella, but he drank all the time, and he fell face down in a pile of glass. Blood went everywhere. And one of his eyes was practically torn out. And I saw that as a very young person. And I said, why would a person drink something that would make them act like that? Well, later on, I figured it out. It's misery. All the misery that black people have to, deal with. Just trying to tune it out. That's where drugs came from. The white supremacists said, oh, you want to tune out the misery that I'm inflicting on you? Oh, I got something for that, too. That'll tune it out. Whiskey, drugs, all of this stuff. That'll make your mind go to another place when you're really not at that place. All right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay.
Yeah. So in answer to the question, no. And that's the truth. I, have a reason to lie about it. I could say, yeah, well, I used to, or something like that. No. I did try to smoke a cigarette once, and lucky strike, 13 years old.
I remember that.
Right. And I said, this is nothing but smoke. Because I was a guy who used to smoke rum and maple tobacco in a pipe. And rum, that rum and maple, it smelled like it was something sweet. So I was candy crazy. I ate a lot of candy, okay, which is another drug, by the way. All right. Oh, yes. That's a killer, okay. It wasn't doing my health any good at all. I used to eat candy like it's going out of style when I was much younger, okay, and I'm paying the price of it now. But in answer to the question, no whiskey, no beer.
All righty.
No cigarettes, but lots of candy.
All right, gotcha. All right, Black Tony, I'm going to ask you a question later. Right now, I'm going to go all the way to the west coast or left coast and way up into British Columbia, Canada. Get ready, Mr. Adam. Let me see if I can punch you in here. And you are there. Adam, good morning, and you're on with Mr. Fuller. Okay, Adam, you are on with Mr. Fuller. Are you there once? Adam, last time. Adam, British Columbia, you're not there? Okay. Sorry about that. Gave you a chance. Going to East Texas. Get ready, Stephen or Stephen, however you pronounce it. You're on with Mr. Fuller. Good morning.
Hey, good morning to you, justice and peace. Real quickly, Mr. Neely Fuller just stated about, every problem can be solved with questions and answers. And I want to say that every crime that's committed can be solved preventively. And Mr. Neely Fuller
you state also about the justice system. And it's very important, real quick, and then I'm going to get my question, so hopefully I won't take too long. And if I do, I apologize. But the justice system in and of itself is so corrupt. And citizens and people all over this country need to understand, from my opinion, and being involved with the justice system is too corrupt to be corrected. So what can we do now? And this is, I think, part of my, not only that, I think it's part of my purpose now in life, is to solve this justice system, because I believe we ourselves as citizens can make the justice systems correct for us, and there's ways to do that. So now my question is, Mr. Neely Fuller, do you believe the justice system is too corrupt? And do you think, and if it is or if it's not, do you think the justice system that we have can help us as people solve the crimes and problems that we face here in this country?
All right, Stephen, I'll have Mr. Fuller answer the question. Mr. Fuller?
The compensatory definition, which is a definition that I made up, that's a made-up definition. And there's two parts to it. Guaranteeing that no person is mistreated. That's part one. Part two, guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help without fail every time. Now, there is no such thing as a corrupt justice system. That's a contradiction. So there's no such thing as a justice system anywhere. Why? Because of that definition. That's why I'm saying words have definitions. So I had to make up one, because I didn't like any of the definitions I saw for the word justice in any book that I looked at, any dictionary. So I made up one that I think will stand the test of time. So the question is, here we get to the questions and answers again. Does justice exist anywhere? The answer is no. Why? Because people are being mistreated everywhere. I don't know of a place on this planet where somebody's not being mistreated. You can't have anybody being mistreated and have justice. It's just that absolute. One person out of 40 trillion being mistreated? No, you don't have justice. All right? So ain't no point in talking about no justice system that exists, because it doesn't exist. You got somebody on the planet who's being mistreated, period. So justice does not exist according to counter-racist science, according to logic.
According to logic,
and
yes, sir.
The people who need help the most have to get the help that they need in every area of activity. Constructive help. Is that guaranteed? Is anybody getting it? Is there everybody on the planet getting the help that they need? The answer is no. If it's just one person not getting help, you don't have justice. No such thing as one person getting justice and another not. Doesn't work like that under that definition. No person can be mistreated anywhere. Justice does not exist. Don't have anything to do with borders either. If you say, well, we got justice in Finland, no, you don't. If somebody's being mistreated in San Francisco, no, you don't.
No, you don't. Okay. All righty. Thank you there, Stephen from East Texas. Actually, Mr. Fuller, you really, well, I'll just put it like this. Black Tony says this, why do people keep expecting to have justice in an unjust world? I think you just answered that, but you care to answer it again?
Yes, it's got to be produced. So you can't go around looking for justice. It doesn't exist. You got to produce it. But you cannot produce it in a system of white supremacy. That's all through the textbook. That's why I wrote the textbook. I say, you know, people are saying, well, I'm looking for justice. I don't know where you're going to look. You're not going to find it. I do know that. because justice means no one can be mistreated. And the person that needs help the most, just one person out of 40 zillion being mistreated or not getting the help that that person needs in the most constructive manner, you don't have justice. Now, a lot of people have listened to me say that, and they have raised a logical issue. They have said, well, Fuller, that's impossible. You can't guarantee that nobody's mistreated and that everybody gets the help that they need. I mean, that's not practical. That's not logical. That ain't going to happen. And I'm saying it better happen. Or stop talking about justice. Period. Under that definition.
Under that definition, yes, sir.
And the logic is, if you can practice injustice, you can practice justice. That's the logic. Justice. Why? Because you're aware that there is a difference between the two. And anything that people are aware of in the form of a problem, they can solve that problem. Otherwise, you couldn't be aware of it. That's the logic.
That's the logic behind it. Always use logic, my people. Logic will lead you right to the truth. Never follow a person, place, or thing, because there's fault in all of us, but there's never any fault in logic. That's why one of the reasons why Mr. Fuller always suggests, and I do too, for people who have or who are trying to make myself into a cult figure, no, follow the logic of whatever I state, and I try to make sure I stay right in those parameters. And speaking about logic, Mr. Fuller, let's talk about that book, your book, The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. The floor is yours.
Everything in the books is about problem solving based on not Neely Fuller as the author of a book, but it's about pointing. The book is supposed to be like a signpost, pointing to what? Not Neely Fuller, the author, but pointing to what? Pointing to logic, the logic of the universe, and saying the logic of the universe points to something called a code. And what is a code? Anything that works. If it doesn't work, it's got no business being called a code because it doesn't fit the description of a code. So this is supposed to be a code book for helping an individual person, wherever he or she may be, who is of color, a non-white person in the system of white supremacy, solve the problem of white supremacy by replacing the system of white supremacy with something that's never been done in recorded history, producing a product called justice. And from getting people to interact with each other in such a manner that the result is always no mistreatment and constructive help, then you can move from justice, which means that type of balance between people, into correctness, and that is getting in complete harmony with the universe that we're in. Mm-hmm. And then you'll have universal man and universal woman.
Correct.
That's theoretical. Now, that's what the book is all about. You can get it by going to producejustice.com, producejustice.com. And it's about do's and don'ts, what the individual person can do, not checking with Neely Fuller every day and see what he thinks and all like that. No. Neely Fuller just is a signpost, and he's using his book as a signpost, pointing to a thing called logic, which is what the white supremacists have been telling black people not to ever use.
Thank you.
They tell black people to use their emotions to solve problems. Emotions are unreliable. They serve a purpose, but if they are not attached to logic, it's like and it's like a car that's got an excellent engine and excellent wheels, but it has no steering mechanism, you know. So the car is just tearing down the street and running all over everything, running through the park and everything like that. You know, it's wild because it doesn't have any steering mechanism. You fire up the engine, and it's got wheels, so the engine is making the wheels go, and that's the thing that's missing, a thing called logic. And black people need to attach themselves to logic and stop looking for a person to lead them. That's what the white supremacists say now. If you're looking for a person to lead you, you black people, that person always is going to be white. So there ain't going to be no black leaders.
And full of fault.
Yes.
Okay. Before I leave here, this book thing here, did you just say, Mr. Fuller, because I think I wrote it down, emotions serve a purpose but are not logical. Did I get that correct?
No. Emotions have to be attached to logic.
Okay.
And then I gave an illustration. Emotions lead you to use logic, which means cause and effect. Get the constructive results every time. That's what logic does. You always get the constructive, codified result in anything that you do. But if you don't attach your emotions to logic, your emotions got a whole lot of fire in it, just like the illustration I just made. Like an engine that's running, a very powerful engine. That's what emotions are. They're a very powerful engine. And you got the wheels on the car, and you got the engine on the car. I'm talking about emotions now.
Yes, sir.
But you have to have a steering mechanism. That's where the logic comes in. That way you're not all a car that's just tearing down the street and no driver or no type of mechanism that makes it steer. It's going to be running into everything, and that's what black people do. Because we're trained that way by the white supremacists. They are the steering mechanism, so they handle all of black people's emotions. They are the masters of black people's emotions. They know how to make us laugh. They know how to make us cry. They know how to make us dance. They know how to make us appreciate one thing and not appreciate another. They know how to tell us anything and have us believe it and be grinning all the time. All right?
Okay.
Because we are trained to follow our emotions. Our emotions tell us to not be logical. Because the white supremacists have us trained that way. If you're looking for logic, you got to find somebody who's white. Because they're mathematical. They don't fool around with anything that fails. Black people worship failure. We've been trained that way. Doing everything that doesn't work. Getting pulled over. Jump out of the car. Start talking about what our rights are. Knowing full well that it ain't going to work. And you're likely to get shot. But we keep doing it anyway.
Keep doing it anyway. You can get the book by going to Produce Justice.
ProduceJustice.com. The book says how to not do that and how to drive away safely without getting killed. In most cases, all you can do is a prisoner of war. Because you got to remember who you are. You don't have any rights if you're black on this planet in the system of white supremacy. Don't ever mention anything about your rights. You have none.
You have
in the system of white supremacy according to the code. That's logic.
All righty. Before we get to Adam in British Columbia, we are coming your way. I just want to remind you that for those who do purchase the book from Amazon, to leave a comment because it's going to help us do some very positive things. So you can get the book. If you get the book through Amazon, please leave a comment so that Mr. Fuller and the crew can do the whatever they have to do with that. Please, ma'am, please, sir, do that. But you can also get the book by going to producejustice.com. And listen, get into that chat room. I'm telling you right now, they are using some logic in there, particularly when Mr. Fuller in the 8th area is speaking about sex. And those 200 questions, man, you got just get into the chat room. That's all I got to say. Okay, Adam, here we go. British Columbia. Okay, wait a minute. Get here. Get there. Okay, Adam, got you on there. You're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Okay. Yeah. Mo here. Good morning, Mr. Fuller. Okay. My question is, well, here's the situation, right? Like, I'm currently going to court. You know, like, I'm arguing that I was charged due to racism, white supremacy, and I hit them with all kinds of questions, all kinds of codified questions, you know, and they refused to answer them, and they shut down the whole court, you know what I mean? Like, so what's the codified response when they refuse to answer my questions? Like, how do I get them to answer my questions? They don't answer them. When I talk this white supremacy stuff, I talk this systemic racism, they don't answer me. Like, how do I get them to really, like, they just shut it down. Like, they don't know what to say. They don't know how to respond. Like, I hear you with the questions, you know, like the codified way is that, you know, if you have a problem, you solve it through questions and answers. They don't answer my questions, man. Like, what do I do over here?
Okay,
like,
let's give Mr. Fuller a chance to answer, Adam. Go ahead, Mr. Fuller. That's all right.
You always ask questions, just like the code says, the logic says. Court itself is set up on nothing but questions and answers. That's what court is. So you are answering their questions, I guess, and they're not answering your questions. So the logical question for you to ask, along with all the other hundreds of questions you may ask that you say that you're doing, is it there a reason, Your Honor, or whomever you're talking to? Always be polite. Always be courteous. Yeah. Is there a reason for my questions not being answered? And see what they say, and make that a matter of court record. Whatever answer they give, never argue about the answers that you get. But you say you're not getting any answers. But the code book says when you don't get an answer, you ask a person a question, and the person says nothing in answer to your question. If they're doing that, then that's the answer. No answer is an answer.
So my question is like, when I ask them if white supremacy exists, when and where does it exist?
What did they say?
They say my questions were inappropriate, and they refused to answer them.
Oh, wait a minute, hold it. They did answer your question. You just said so. See what I mean?
Okay, that's an answer. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Even if they had answered with silence, that's an answer. I thought they were answering you with silence. No, but they gave you an answer. They said it's inappropriate. Now you can ask another question. Why is it inappropriate? See, that's what I'm saying. The questions and answers have no stopping point. All problems throughout the entire universe, as long as there has been a universe, or how many other universes there are out there somewhere, all problems that have to do with everything in every universe have always been solved through the process of questions and answers. The court system that you're talking about, and any court system you ever hear about, is going to consist of questions and answers. So you're always cooperating if you're asking questions and getting answers. So even if you're charged with being non-cooperative, you will say, how am I non-cooperative when I have been told to ask and answer questions, the things that I need to know?
Okay.
That's a question.
Hang on right there. Hang on right there, Mr. Fuller. Hang on,
yes.
Adam. I got to do this. We have concluded the first hour of the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Fuller. We have flipped into the second hour. So we are going to present now the second hour of the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. To get in contact with the show, just call 516-453-9921. And then press the number 1 button, and you can get into ask Mr. Fuller your questions. I'm asking you not to be emotional when you ask that your question, and make sure that you listen for the answer that Mr. Fuller was going to give, and please do not be long. Thank you. Most of you have done that. You can also go to the chat room by going to the blogtalkradio.com. Click on the programs, and there's a Produced Justice Show. Click on that, and then click on programs, click on programs, and then you get the chat room. You're into the chat, and you are going to really get some good things there. You can also Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby at gmail.com. Mr. Bobby, 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY at gmail.com. Yeah, boy, I really screwed that one up. See? You see that? Well, I need still learning. Okay, let's get back to Adam there. Adam, we're going to get right back to you. Now, someone said in that courtroom, you may need a lawyer to answer, Mr. Fuller, to answer his question, since I'm assuming that you have answered the question yourself. Is it possible for you to get a lawyer, Adam, to ask those questions for you?
I'm currently representing myself. I've been doing this for years. You know what I mean? Like, they had me locked up for 15 years. I'm out here now, and I'm still dealing with it. And I got Mr. Fuller's books. They're a blessing. I studied them. I got the Word Guide. I got the Counter-Racist Code, the revised edition. Like, these are jewels, though. But for real, like, I love the way you're talking, man. Like, it's true. All problems are solved through questions and answers. When I hit them with them questions, though, they didn't know how to respond. Like, they got real quiet. You know what I mean? So, like, when they don't respond, I just want to know, like, what's the codified response to that? Like, if they don't respond. You know what I mean?
All right. Okay, Adam, and we'll let Mr. Fuller do it. And thank you for your call. Mr. Fuller, your final response to Adam?
Just keep asking questions. And like you gave an illustration a few minutes ago, you said that the person answers the question that you had by saying your question was inappropriate. So here's the codified procedure as far as questions and answers. Whatever they say as an answer, have a question ready about what they said as an answer. And so to make the point, the person said, your question was inappropriate. They used the word inappropriate. That was the answer that was given to you. So you can't truthfully say that the person didn't answer. The person did answer. But then the logical procedure would be to ask a question about the answer that they gave by saying, your question was inappropriate. Now you have another question. And what is that logical question? What is it that the logical question would be? Why is my question inappropriate? Your Honor, sir, ma'am, whomever. Like I say, never raise your voice. Keep your voice steady. Always be polite. Always be courteous. Even if everybody else starts stomping and screaming, don't you do it. Just be ready with your next question. And don't make any remarks other than in the form of a question, other than to answer their questions.
Okay.
You know, someone may, at some point may say, you know, that, well, from now on you're going to have to stop asking questions. So you stop asking questions. So you have to do that because you're in court. You're at the mercy, directly and indirectly, of the white supremacists who have all the power.
Absolutely.
That's what you're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
All right?
Okay.
So then you may even ask for permission to ask one more question. Why am I not allowed to ask questions? If they allow you to ask that question, after telling you, don't ask no more questions. Okay.
Okay. All right, Adam, I'm going to let you go, but some suggestions from the chatters, they're suggesting that you may want to be calm because, as Mr. Fuller stated, see, you're in their ballroom, or in this case, courtroom. So you have to be, somebody just said, you got to be professional and businesslike. And, be logical and be courteous. Yeah.
All the time.
Those are from the,
Don't lose your temper.
Don't lose your temper. Those are from the chatters. They're listening to you. Calm it down, brother. Calm it down and do what you have to do there. Thank you for your call, Adam from British Columbia. Thank you for calling back. Thank you, team, for letting them in. Okay, Terrence, Ohio. Let me see. Let me get you in. Okay, Terrence, you're in.
Hey, what's happening, Mr. Bobby? How you doing?
Yes, sir, brother.
I've been doing. I'm here in Tennessee, and I heard you talk about the Tennessee Valley Authority, and I'm right down here with them. And I was looking at some of the history about them, and what came up to me is they, after thousands of people that were hired for the dams, Norris Dam being one that I'm not too far away from, they only hired 2 black people, and then when this person, this white person, white Southerner, wrote an article that exposed that, they went to 5 people. So, and then their thing was this, and it reminded me of what Mr. Fuller said some time ago about the great contradiction, that even though it moved and displaced a whole bunch of black people here in Tennessee, their homes, their farms, only hired a handful of black people to work on the dam, they said millions or thousands of black people got electricity from it. So it had me thinking about the great contradiction about white supremacy, how we can't let go of the benefit from it. And so I was wanting to ask Mr. Fuller to talk about that. And my CRT word is ceaseless racial tyranny.
Okay, CRT word. Okay, Mr. Fuller?
Yes. Now, your question was?
What was your question about the Tennessee Valley Authority? Yeah.
No, I just was making a comment about the Tennessee Valley Authority, but they only hired so many black people, and they displaced thousands of black homes and farms. But they said that we benefited, the black people here benefited from the electricity of it. So it reminded me of, can you talk about the contradiction of racism, but we can't let go of it because we benefit from it. We can't let go of the benefits from it. Does that make sense?
Well, we're prisoner. The codified position is, if you are a person of color and you're on a planet called Earth, you are born in prison. So some prison situations are better than others, from what I've been told. I haven't been in what you call penitentiaries or nothing like that, but from what I've been told and from what logic tells me, some people who have done what you call hard time have been in several prisons, and they have said that in some prisons the food is better, the sanitation conditions. In some prisons you don't have the roaches and the rats, and in others you do. And so it's the same way with the system of white supremacy. Depending on where you are as a black person, person of color, on the planet. And so you, in some situations, you do very, very well in the prison. Someone will look at that and say, Fuller, you're saying that you're doing well in a prison? Yes, as far as being comfortable because you are where the comfort centers are. Now, for example, so the people will understand it, as a prison system, if you're working in the warden's office, like in the movie it showed Shawshank Redemption, you get some extra benefits. Like Andy Dufresne in that movie, Shawshank Redemption, he worked in the warden's office. So he wore, his clothes didn't get dirty and all like that because he's working in the warden's office. The warden didn't want any dirty prisoner sitting up in his office, smelling bad when he received his guests and all like that. He's got a prisoner working right there in the office. So he has to be clean and neat. And so the warden even gave the character that worked in his office some pie. He hadn't seen pie in years, I guess. So he appreciated that pie. Well, the warden didn't appreciate the pie. The pie was a gift to him. He said, whoever cooked this pie, they don't know much about cooking. So he gave it to the prisoner. The prisoner was glad to get it. Why? Well, he was in position to get it. Now, the rest of the prisoners throughout the prison, they didn't get any pie on that day. All right? But the warden gave someone that worked in his office the pie. Just a simple thing like pie. And then the world is set up that way, too. The closer a lot of black people get to where the white people are comfortable, that's why a lot of black people like to move into a white neighborhood. Hey, it seems like, I don't have to put bars on the windows here. Everybody, in fact, on this side of town, people don't even lock their screen doors. They got patrols all over the place. Coming in and checking on people and whatnot, seeing how you're doing. Has there been any problem? Has anybody done any vandalism lately? You heard that there was a street light knocked out about 3 days ago. Got that fixed right quick. We don't have any street lights over here knocked out. We get instant response when we call down there at City Hall. You got maintenance people all over the place. Over there where those black people are, they trying to get out of there because they can't stand each other. They slaughtering each other over there every night. Bullets flying through the windows and killing their babies and all that. See, so different sections of a prison, and the closer you get to the warden's office, the better off you are. I took the long way around of answering that question, but I hope I gave an illustration that people can understand.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Terrence, down in Tennessee, working. Go ahead, brother. Work it out. One of the things that, we promote here is the book that you can get by going to producejustice.com. And also, by the way, for those of you who do get the code book from Amazon.com, we're asking that you just leave a comment because we're going to work with that, do something very special with your comment. So please, when you get the book from Amazon.com, please leave a comment. One of the things that happens, and this is going to be worldwide, you're giving it out, from the chat room, I'm always saying go to the chat room. One of the things that are in the chat room, people religiously are doing what the code book says, and one of the things that is said by Constructive Action item says, number one, read the code book in the 8th area of activity. Ask over 200 questions prior to engaging in sexual relationships. Number two, discontinue the practice of equating degenerate behavior with blackness. Number three, don't expect to be treated correctly in this unjust system as a victim of racism. It doesn't get any better than tacky. Number four, be your own leader. Stand by your work. Number five, follow the logic. Make sure to attach your emotions to logic so that you can act constructively. Number six, seek out the most constructive white person, study them, and ask for constructive compensatory help. And number seven, Control your emotions. Do not allow the usual suspects to control you. Slow down, breathe, think, and ask one question at a time and wait for the response. In the code book. That's why you need to get the code book so that you can have an idea of suggestions to help you, to help us to produce justice. Marcus. Long Beach. Let me see if I can get you in there. There you go.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller. I just have a quick VGQ or a suggestion. The hit TV series Game of Thrones, my personal opinion, talks about everything that Mr. Fuller explains within the book and in the show. And I think most people should watch that show if they haven't already, with the idea of what Mr. Fuller says, and specifically the relationship between Ramsey Bolton and Theon Greyjoy. Thank you.
Okay. Now, you have a question? I'm sorry.
No, that was just a suggestion.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that suggestion, Marcus, from Long Beach, the usual.
And I'd like to stay on the line, sir.
Okay, got you. Man, glad you said something because you get ready to get the click. Okay. All righty. Thank you, brother. Darnell, New York. Let me see. Get you in here. Okay. There you go.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr.
Okay,
Fuller.
you got to cut that down in the background.
Oh, I'm sorry. Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller.
Good morning, sir.
Mr. Fuller, according to the code, why is it important for the victims of white supremacy to always look at justice as a continuous process, not like a one-time payment thing?
Why is it that the white supremacists always do what?
No. Why should the victims of justice, the victims of white supremacy, look forward to justice being a process and not a one-time payment?
Oh, I covered that in the early hour, if you were listening. In fact, I've covered that several times, but I'll do it again. If you're talking about reparations or compensation for the mistreatment, the repair job that needs to be done, that's what reparations is all about. Repair. You wreck something, you have to repair it. Okay, so if you're going to repair black people, I'm saying, in my suggestion, that's a huge job. Lots of damage has been done. So a one-time payment for a repair job that requires generations, that was done over generations of damage, has to be a generational repair job. You can't just repair that, a huge, where everything was destroyed and everything about a black person was destroyed. Their self-esteem, everything. You got to repair all of that. Denouncing, being cursed at every day, being told that you're nothing every day, being treated generation after generation, and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, generation after generation. And so just to come up and say, well, here's a little bundle of cash, and this will take care of most of your needs for the next 5 years, maybe 10 years if you stretch it out. And then you be back right back where we started from, but don't come around no more asking for nothing, because I paid you off. You black people are always talking about how much you love cash. I gave it to you. I gave you a whole pile of it. But I also figured I was going to get every dime of it back. I figured that out before I gave it to you. Now, a lot of black people who are thinking about this cash payment need to think about that, too. And you can ask for it, but you need to have something in that contract that you sign, because they're going to have you sign something. Because, see, after they pay you off, one thing they're going to tell you, now I don't want to see you no more. All right? I mean, I paid you people off. You got your cash. You went and did whatever you wanted to do with it in my world, where you have to spend all of this cash with me anyway. All right? I'm going to get it all back, every dime of it, which you ain't got sense enough to see that, but that's all right. I don't want you to have sense enough to see it. That's why I'm paying you in cash. I handle cash. You don't know nothing about handling cash. I know all about investments and all like that. You can do all the investing you want. I'll be controlling the investments. You're talking about a Black Wall Street and all like that. Even when they had a Black Wall Street, I controlled that. But you just didn't see me around, all right? See, you black people don't understand white supremacy. That's what you don't understand. You just understand white supremacy when it's on the face of $100 bill. Thomas Jefferson, or Madison, or George Washington, number one, all right, on that $1 bill. Benjamin Franklin on the $100 bill. Now, you understand a white face on that, all right? But there's power behind those white faces, and those powers are all about white supremacy, including those slave owners who are on that money that you worship. It comes from me, Negro, and so anything that I can put out, I can take back. But you can't see that. And I'll be glad for you to line up and get cash. Now, what Neely Fuller was saying, no, I don't want to see no cash, period. I want like the Queen wants. All right, what Queen? Okay, we'll just use the Queen of England, for example. The Queen of England don't carry no cash, no credit cards either. She just gets up in the morning and stretches and say, lay out my clothes. Any kind, the best that you got. Bring me my breakfast. The best that you got. Well, how long are we going to do this, Queen? As long as I'm Queen. I'm going to be Queen forever. Okay? Now, how about that type of thinking? In other words, the Queen don't carry cash because she don't need none. See, when I can ask for everything that I want, what I need with cash. See, black people are not used to that because we're not used to getting nothing. So when we get this about $5 or $6, I mean, hey, or $5 or $6 million or something like that, the average black person, man, I've died and gone to heaven. That's the end of it. Not knowing that $5 or $6 million can be gone in about 6 weeks. All of it. Depending on what they want to charge you for some ham, or what they want to charge you to call the Uber if you're black. Oh, that neighborhood you live in. I mean, all them black people down there that got that money, they gone crazy because they down there killing each other big time now because they all wanted to grow up and be gangsters. So when I paid them off for all this misery they've been through, they got to be bigger gangsters. But what the gangsters do, they kill each other more than they kill anybody. So that's what y'all doing down there in the ghetto with that money I gave you. So I know it ain't going to last long because you ain't going to last long. Then you're going to be back what? Begging me. And I put it in the contract in small print or even in bold print because y'all ain't got no sense no way. Don't come back here. After I pay you off now, I don't want to see you no more. And I mean no more. No jobs, no nothing. Make your own job. Go out there in the middle of the ocean. And remember, when you go to the middle of the ocean now, you got to remember, the ocean is mine too. Because you don't have nothing with your black self.
Your black self. Wow. Absolutely. Okay. Let's see here. Let me do this. I got this. Well, thank you, Darnell, for your question here. Let me do this here. Mr. Fuller, Mr. Jones says this. Why do so many white people have an obsession with shooting Black Lives Matter protesters or doing harm to anyone that's associated with them, even if they have a T-shirt that has those words on it?
Why? Let me get the question now so that I'll be answering correctly. Why do black people...
Yeah, wait a minute. Let me go back to the... Whoops.
You always
Here we go. Okay, it says, why do so many white people have an obsession with shooting Black Lives Matter protesters or doing harm to anyone that's associated with them, even if they just have a T-shirt that has those words on it?
Because they consider it offensive, I guess. But the best thing to do is to ask the white person, why does it upset you? Questions and answers always lead everybody right where they should be. That's absolute. That's the whole code right there. Questions and answers will always, without fail, lead everybody right where they should be. That's white or non-white. And it won't lead everybody where they want to be, but it will lead everybody, white people and non-white people, right where they should be. And the question there is, if I object to something, and Neely Fuller objects to something, then the question is, Fuller, why are you objecting? And wait for the answer. Never help the person with the answer. People have a tendency to do that. I have a tendency to do that every now and then. Okay? But that's a no-no. Once you ask a question, put a question mark behind it and wait for the answer. You're not looking for your answer, even though most people have a tendency to do that, including myself. You're not looking for your answer. You're looking for their answer. Have them give their answer. If you follow that procedure, it will always take everybody right where they should be every time. That's a guarantee. Black people need guarantees. That's what codification is all about, guarantees.
Okay.
We're not used to being guaranteed anything.
Yeah. Okay, let's station break here. You are listening to the Counter Racist Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. Now, to get in contact with the remaining 30 minutes of our show, just call this number. That is 516-453-9921. Make sure make sure that you press the number 1 button so that you can be heard. Now, a suggestion from one of our loyal listeners is that you be brief or be short. Just get to the question or your VGQ, but just make it short so that Mr. Fuller can answer your question appropriately using logic, which is cause and effect, and examples that he uses. And also the chatters and other callers are also listening to whatever you say, so you want to make it clear so that they can understand what you are saying. And the chatters will chat about it. I'll tell you that right now. So do that. You can also contact me, my Gmail address, the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY @gmail.com. Yay, I got that correct. You can also do that, and this is important here. You can also go to the chat room. All you go to is blogtalkradio.com. Then you want to go to programs and the Produce Justice show right there. Click that bad boy up, and then an icon for the chat room will be available, and you can get in there and get to talking with some constructive action. All of them in there, and they working that bad boy. I'm proud of them. And occasionally I will read some of the suggestions that are in there, and I can tell you this: most of the suggestions that are in there come directly from people who practice, who study and practice thought, speech, and action. The code book. In fact, I just read one not too long ago in the 8th area of activity about sex and the 200 questions that should be asked, among other things. Very good. These are suggestions, though. Are suggestions. And that's another thing. Yeah, go to producejustice.com for the book that Mr. Fuller will be speaking about in a few. But we need that code book, a guide to show us what to do, to suggest to us what to do and what not to do in the producing of justice. All righty, so you want to do that. Justice Warrior, I see you, and I do like the program Snowfall. And you are correct. It's like that old adage. I didn't read all of it, but, you want to do right, you want to get right or do something right, but the certain groups or a certain group says, I am the Lord, just as I giveth, I taketh away because I control you in this world. I'm speaking in code there, but you know what that means. Yeah. All righty. Anyway, that's where you want to go to. You want to go to producejustice.com to get all that information. Okay, let's get back into the remaining 29 minutes, and let's go back out to L.A. My man, Swa. Okay, you're on. Go ahead, my brother.
And greetings, Mr. Bobby. Greetings, Ms. Neely Fuller.
Greetings, sir.
Ms. Neely Fuller Jr., how and why should black people attempt to counter racism?
How and why black people need to counter racism? Is that the question?
Yes, how and why should we counter racism? Yes.
Because you can't solve, like it says on the back of the basic textbook, no major problem, and the world is full of problems, can be solved without first solving the race problem. That's the premise of the entire book. You got a lot of problems. Right now they're talking about the Ukraine and all like that. You're not going to solve any major problem anywhere on this planet without, first of all, solving the race problem, because the race problem is attached either directly or indirectly to everything that everybody on the planet is involved in. Something called white supremacy. You've got to get rid of it. And then all the other, I used to have a statement, solve the race problem, and all the other problems you can take care of on your day off.
Okay. All right. You got that, Swa? Okay. All right. Mr. Fuller, I'm sorry. Was there a misconnection there?
I'm still here.
Okay, Mr. Fuller's still here. Okay, so I don't know what happened there, but okay. Mr. Fuller, Dale Turner wants to say thank you. He received the books, and he also goes to producejustice.com for all his information there. Helen B., I'm going to get to you in just a second. Here, Justice Warrior says this, Mr. Fuller, can you speak about this new and emerging global white supremacist, Elon Musk, who is a descendant of the white South Africans? He's on his way to becoming a trillionaire and wants total world control and domination.
Well, if he's a white supremacist, it's just more white supremacy. Now, if that's what he wants control. The white supremacists are already in control of everything that has to do with non-white people, and the world is full of people of color. All right? So he just wants more control, or as an individual, he probably wants it more centralized around himself. I don't know. But the best way to find out is what?
Ask him.
Through the process we talk about all the time. I would have to ask Mr. Musk, if that's who you're talking about. M-U-S-K?
Yes, M-U-S-K.
That's the name of the person?
Yes.
Yes, I would
he just purchased Twitter.
I would just say, first of all, I would ask him, sir, what is it that you are doing? And then when he tells me what he's doing, well, I'm doing this and I'm doing that and I'm doing that, then my next question would be, why are you doing it? That goes to page 171 and 172. Those 4 universal questions that apply to every situation and apply to everybody. What is it you want to do? He wants to do something. So the caller is saying he's doing it. Now he's doing it because he wants to do it. So the next question is, why does he want to do what it is that he wants to do? Whatever it is. And then wait for him to answer that question. And then question number 3, because it's just 4. How do you plan to do it? Well, I'm quite sure he has already shown his plan from what I saw on television, even though I don't remember the details of the plan. Yeah. But he's shown that he does have a plan. In order to be the richest person in the world, I mean, I guess you figure, I automatically, logically think that he is a great planner. All right? He's a great planner if he's the richest person in the world. He had to plan something, okay? And then the 4th question is, what do you expect the constructive result to be, Mr. Musk? And then wait for the answer, and like the code always says, don't ever interfere with the answer that somebody's given, or start telling that person your opinion of the answer. Just have another question ready.
Okay. All righty, Gmail. This is from Judith from Liverpool. She says this, Mr. Fuller, by purchasing Twitter, is that a new way of Mr. Musk giving somebody the bird?
I don't know.
Okay. All righty.
But if you want to find out, ask him that. See what I mean? Questions and answers. Yeah. And whatever answer he gives, that's the answer. He knows.
Okay.
Well, I guess he thinks he knows. But he'll give some kind of answer, even if the answer is, get out of my face and don't ask me no more questions. That's an answer.
All righty. Let's go to the Queen Bee in New York City. That would be Helen B. Helen B., you're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Grand Rising, Mr. Bobby, Mr. Neely Fuller. My question to Mr. Neely Fuller, did you have a television in the 1940s, and do you know of any attempted family members that had televisions in the 40s? And I'll hold on.
Okay. Mr. Fuller?
We had a television, very small screen, in the 1950s. I think the first time I saw a television, it was in 1950. It was the first time. And my mother had one in the house. And I used to look at Dave Garraway and Jack LaScully early in the morning. Dave Garraway was on NBC news program.
The Today Show?
Yeah, the Today Show. There was a person named Dave Garraway, very popular.
And Jack LaScully.
And he had a co-host named Jack LaScully. I remember those two people. I tried to catch them every morning because they gave us the news. And old black and white television that every now and then I'd have to go over and pound on the top of it in order to keep from getting all those diagonal lines and whatnot, because they had big, huge tubes in them. You had to call the repairman all the time. Not like today. They had lots of TV repair shops at that time. I think that lasted through the 1960s.
Okay. I remember that particular name, Jack LaScully. I remember that name. All right, Helen B., wait a minute. Okay, was that it, Helen B.?
Oh, and the second question was, how many attempted families in his area and in the area where he resided, how many of them had televisions in the 40s as well?
You're in an attempted family. They had television in the 1940s.
No, I'm asking you, how many attempted families did you know of that had televisions in the 1940s, Mr. Fuller?
Very few. Very few in the 1950s, where I was. I was in Muskogee, Oklahoma. And television, well, it was new. Yeah, and during the 1940s, very few people. In the 1930s, I came up in the 1930s, we had to go down the road on many occasions. I'm talking about collectively, black people. Walk 2 or 3 miles down a country road to hear on the radio, on a scratchy radio that you had to pound on and whatnot. And most of the time, the signal would come in and come out of somebody who had a radio. Radio was a wonder. You didn't have money to have a radio, and even if you had the money to have the radio, you didn't have the electricity. Talking about the 1930s now, for black people in rural areas. Telephone, maybe one person would have a telephone, and that was 4 miles down the road. Anybody who wanted to make a call had to go down and borrow the use of Miss Green's telephone. And she'll tell you, now, don't stay on there too long now. If you're making a long-distance call, that was something that was absolutely unheard of. Mm-hmm. A long-distance call, man, you had to plan that way ahead because the charges were astronomical.
For a television back in them days, or a phone call?
Oh, yes. You had first of all, you had to know somebody who had a phone, and then if you're going to make a long-distance call, you had to plan that long-distance call about 2 weeks ahead of time. Because, and get your little pennies together, because you're going to have to pay Miss Green, because she'd let you know, don't go 1 minute over those 3 minutes. That's the 3-minute limit. That was the usual time. Or the operator would cut you off. All right?
Well, maybe.
It was that way on payphones.
Payphones, yes, sir.
Yeah, and you would put your little quarters in there, and you're making a long-distance call. A long-distance call was a huge event. Sometimes a whole family affair. We're going to hear from Cousin Ellen next month at 2 p.m. in the afternoon after everybody comes from church. And she's going to call now. So everybody all 25 of us got to be here. And she's going to talk to as many of all 25 of us. She put her money aside, and she's going to be on the line for about 6 minutes. So y'all get everything together that y'all got to say. Because they're going to cut us off after 6 minutes.
Okay.
And all the cousins and uncles and everybody would be assembled there like they're going to London to a big conference or something by plane in the modern days. But back then, just a telephone call. Yeah, they called them from a place called Los Angeles, and that's in California.
Okay.
That's where we talked.
That's where we talked in. And now, look, from the palm of our hand. You can make a phone call, or like the Jetsons TV used to have a walkie-talkie on your wrist, and we're doing all that stuff. Wow.
Yeah.
Ooh. What a thing here. Let's see here. This is what I was getting ready to say here, and then my screen went dark on me. This comes from Caleb, or Freeway. Says this. Dear Mr. Fuller, I'm writing to question if you have heard of the YouTube channel Hip Hop Cartoons. This channel animates segments of your 2-hour broadcast into a format that children can watch. Because of that channel, I've stumbled across Mr. Fuller's Your Body of Work, and I've been able to share your message with my son and other children of my family. Thank you, and best regards, Caleb.
He didn't have a question, did he?
No, he was just saying that that he watches that somebody
some animated cartoons of my work.
Yes, and he's taking that and teaching it to his children. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've heard about it.
Okay. I wasn't aware.
In fact, I've seen a couple of them.
Okay.
I'm not connected with that directly, but someone is doing that. But they do say that it comes from my book, and that's
okay. I haven't seen that yet. Okay, and then Dale.
You haven't seen it, Mr. Bobby?
No, I haven't seen it. I've seen some of the stuff that had us talking, but that was when we were on at talktainmentradio.com. I've seen that, but I don't. I hardly even replay some of our shows because I can check out so many errors that I make that it's almost impossible for me to listen. But then when I do listen, I try to correct whatever I can correct. But it's hard for me to listen, to that. But I'm always trying to get better. Each time, word pronunciation and thoughts and all that, and I'm still learning how to do that. Dale wrote this, Mr. Fuller. He came back. He said, I just ordered the 2016 book and word book from your site yesterday and can't wait to get them and begin to study. That comes from Dale, which reminds me of the announcement earlier that we made that anybody that is going to order books from Amazon.com, you can get that there. Just leave a comment there, and so that they can do what the Fuller Company can do what they need to do with that. There's something good that's going on for that. And you can also go to producejustice.com and order the books. As a matter of fact, Mr. Fuller, speak about your books in the as we have this particular time.
Yes, you can get the book by going to producejustice.com. And a lot of the things, right, directly, indirectly, everything that we've been talking about on this program and other programs is in the book in one form or another. And it's a word guide that goes with it, how to use words, how not to use words, what words to ask questions about when other people use certain words, because people use words that are very misleading, you might say, in the way people interpret the words that are being used. So that causes what? One thing that the entire code book is supposed to be about, and that's getting rid of what? Confusion. Because you cannot solve any problem of any kind if there is confusion about solving the problem. So the white supremacists spread confusion deliberately. Why? Because they don't want black people to ever be able to solve any problem that black people have that is not under the control of the white supremacists. So one way they prevent black people from solving problems is in all areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex. They spread confusion. So the textbook workbook for victims of racism is about getting rid of the confusion and how to go about doing it as an individual person, and about what to do to solve problems in general. Any problem that you have. That's why it's segmented into 9 areas of activity in alphabetical order, starting with economics, the use of time and energy, and explaining what words should mean in the compensatory counter-racist guide. But you can get both volumes. It's really just one book, but it's in 2 volumes, by going to producejustice.com. And then some people also want an original copy of the revised expanded edition, and that's also there too. That's the 1984 edition. It has a computer design on that particular volume. But that volume has been updated in the 2016 edition that is also at that website, producejustice.com. But it shows the individual black person what you can do about racism, or what you can do about solving a whole lot of other problems that are connected directly and indirectly with racism in all areas of activity, just in the form of suggestions. Just suggestions based on what? Logic. And you can accept them or reject them. It's not dictatorial. Mm-hmm. It's what works for you as an individual, where you happen to be. But go to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com.
Okay. In the remaining moments that we do have here, Mr. Fuller, there's something that's been very disturbing and been very talked about that happened up in the city of Grand Rapids, in particular in the Grand Rapids Police Department. From what we've been able to, or what I've been able to see, is that a black man was shot in the back of the head while laying face down, I believe, with his arms tied around his back and a policeman on top of him. From as of right now, unless there's been some updated information, the police have not released the video, of that. And of course, Reverend Al Sharpton and Ben have gone up there to whatever they do with the family. What are your thoughts or comments, about that? Because he wasn't fighting, he wasn't fleeing, he was lying face down and got shot in the back of the head. It was very disturbing to a lot of people.
Well, it's something I expected, because I've said you have to look. If you're black on this planet, you're under the system of white supremacy, and you're in a prison system. You are actually born in that system, and you are a prisoner of war. War is still in progress. There's no such thing as this war being over, called racism. Racism is war. And every black person on the planet in 2022
yes, sir,
is a prisoner of war. So if you're a prisoner of war and you're doing anything at all or doing nothing at all, you can expect to get shot at any time by a white supremacist. And you have many people who are in different positions who are, according to the code, they're race soldiers, but they're posing as something else. Mm-hmm. Race soldiers mean you're a white supremacist posing as a law enforcement officer. See, there's no such thing as a police officer doing anything that shouldn't be done. And stop accusing police. We got to get our words straight. But a race soldier is a white person who is pretending to be a police officer, but he's a race soldier. He's like if you make a reference to World War II, in a death camp, and he's a Gestapo. So if you're a prisoner in a death camp in World War II, you can expect death at any time, under any circumstance. Any soldier that just feels like trying out his gun, just walk up and shoot you in the back of the head. That's the way that's done. Any member of the German army, if you use that analogy, just walk up and shoot you for target practice. Every black person should expect that. Every last one of them on the planet, at any time, anywhere. If you don't expect that, you're really sleeping on the job. Now, that's what the code has to say about that. I keep saying it over and over again. It's not taken. And to start thinking about you got some rights or something like that, or getting excited and saying, why did he do that? And all like, hey, remember who you are. You're nothing. You're black and you're on the planet. You're breathing, walking around in a death camp. The whole earth is a death camp for you if you're black. Can you get that through your mind, period? Folks, please. And don't think that you can talk your way out of getting killed at any time. They kill you because they want to kill you, and ain't nobody going to do nothing about it, period. You can cry and moan and put teddy bears on a fence until infinity. You've got to get rid of the entire system. And the start would be just asking for the simple things, like anybody who is in law enforcement, you're going to have to write a book to explain why you pulled the gun. That's where the problem is. The problem is the person with the gun. So if you straighten that out, don't ever pull that gun out of a holster, period, unless, and be able to enumerate maybe about 4 things. And if you didn't follow those 4 things to the letter, you are on your way to life imprisonment. All right? That's all they have to do. But black people don't even know what to ask for. We say, well, we want it to stop. You got to have a law that's absolute. The gun doesn't come out of the holster, period, except for 2 or 3 reasons. And if that law enforcement officer, regardless of who it is, got overexcited or whatnot, even, law enforcement officer he's in the right. He has to be, or she, highly trained, over and over again. Like you
Mr.
train
Fuller,
a Navy SEAL. Yeah.
Let me interject here. I just received some information that before all that happened, that the victim was in a struggle with the officer, and apparently was being subdued and was
I saw the film.
In the back of the head.
Fuss,
so I didn't know that. I'm sorry.
Don't fuss, don't fight, don't flee.
Okay.
I have said that, the 3 F's.
Yeah.
Don't
so I just
fuss,
want to interject that.
Don't fight, don't flee.
Okay.
If you do, expect to be dead. Period.
Okay. Just to be clear,
but we don't seem to get that.
Yes, just to be clear, I just wanted to make sure that was interjected. It just got that before the police officer or whoever did the shooting, that there was a struggle that had ensued. Go ahead, Mr. Fuller. Finish up, please, sir.
Well, crying about it won't help later on, or having another 15 million press conferences in which everybody steps up to the mic and say, we protest, we demand, we do this, we're going to die in another 5 minutes, 3 blocks from where that ceremony is being held.
Yeah.
Because of, we keep forgetting, if you're black on this planet in the system of white supremacy, you're nothing.
Yes.
You understand nothing? Now, that's code.
That's code. Got to leave it there for today's show. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Thank you, callers. Thank you, chatters, Gmailers. Thank you all. Thank you for producers. Thank you for all the information that you have given me so we can keep the show straight and honest. Thank you. We hope to do better next week. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Everybody have a good, constructive, and productive Producing Justice week. Thank you, Mr. Fuller.
Thanks, everybody.
ProduceJustice.com.
I hope I can do better next time.
Yes, sir.
Fuller,
All
stop
right.
yelling.
All right.
All right.
Bye.